When the Marvel Cinematic Universe started back in 2008, no one was sure whether or not it would be a success or would be able to birth a cinematic universe. But as we all know, it did. It built the biggest franchise in movie history, with every installment now cracking $1 billion. And in the years following, it was evident that multiple studios were trying to replicate Marvel's success, and boy did they try. Almost everyone wanted in on the idea of a shared universe. Crossovers and team-ups were becoming the norm. Multiple cinematic universes began to pop up, including the MonsterVerse, the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters, and many more. But none tried to replicate the MCU as hard as Marvel's oldest and arguably biggest competitor. I am, of course, talking about DC, and the DCEU, otherwise known as the DC Extended Universe, or the worlds of DC. By the time Man of Steel came out, Marvel had only released 7 films, which is a lot, but the DCEU could potentially catch up within 3 years and would only be a couple movies behind Marvel. I also have to remind you that most people don't even know that the Incredible Hulk is part of the MCU, and the people that do pretend it isn't. Basically, what I'm saying is the DCEU, if planned correctly, could almost have had as many films as Marvel does by now. But what about the characters? Does DC even have the potential to build a cinematic universe? To that I say heck yeah. DC characters could easily support their own franchises as well as movies, and as good as Marvel, or even better. You cannot convince me that out of the 3 most well-known superheroes, 2 of them aren't from DC. Those 2 being Batman and Superman. The third is Spider-Man, by the way. There are endless storylines from the comics to adapt that could easily create compelling characters and storylines. That's if it's done right. However, in my opinion, in the DCEU, it wasn't. Sticking to the topic of characters, let me ask you a question. What makes The Flash special? Is it his super speed? Normally, the answer would and should be yes. But in the DCEU, it really isn't. Take Justice League, for example. After Superman is resurrected and not right in the brain, when he's fighting the other members of the team, there's this moment where Flash and Superman are moving at the same speed. Heck, Superman may even be moving faster than the Flash. And this is again shown at the end of the film when Superman and the Flash race. And that is not the only example. And disclaimer, I'm not counting super strength. The thing is, pretty much every superhero has super strength, so it's not really supposed to be special. It's more of a given. If a superhero doesn't have super strength, it's actually considered a peculiarity. Even Spider-Man, an agile, skinny kid, has super strength. Look at this scene from Civil War.
You got hard, kid. Where you from?
Queens?
Brooklyn.
But what about flight? While it's less superhero specific, still not everybody has it. Well, in the DCEU, almost everybody can fly. Superman can fly, Wonder Woman can jump, and I mean jump. Batman can grapple, Cyborg can fly, and Aquaman can also jump. See the problem? And don't even get me started on Shazam and Superman. The 2 are way too similar in the movies. Also, what's the difference between Superman and Wonder Woman? They both have super strength. They can both basically fly. The only difference is one has a whip and the other has laser eyes. Compare that to how drastically the difference is between Captain America and Iron Man. Batman is admittedly different, but not by much. Same with Cyborg. Basically, I would just like more distinction between heroes and their powers. This is also the reason the Avengers succeeded and the Defenders on Netflix failed. The Battle of New York was so novel because we saw all these different heroes bounce off of each other in unique ways. Like, for example, when Iron Man shoots a laser at Cap, he deflects it back at Chitauri. Or in Civil War, when Hawkeye fires an arrow, Iron Man rides it onto Iron Man. Compare this to the Defenders. How can they play off of each other? Luke Cage punches really hard. Jessica Jones punches really hard. Iron Fist punches really hard. And Daredevil punches really hard. Honestly, Syndrome said it the best.
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
So, how exactly did DC and Warner Bros. Go about their cinematic universe? For this section, I'm not going to be talking about how bad the films actually are. I'll come to that, don't worry. I'm just going to be talking about their actual plan for the franchise. So, where did they decide to start? Hopefully with something well known and iconic, right? Well, yes, actually, they did. They started with Superman, and calling the film Man of Steel was okay, I guess. So yeah, the start of the universe was fine, but what did they do next? How did they follow up the start of their universe? Well, they didn't. Honestly, they didn't. The DCEU started in 2013, and when did the next film come out? 2016. That gap is 3 years long. That is insane. DC practically wanted to give Marvel a head start. But anyway, when they finally did decide to release something, what did they release? Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Wait, what? Batman vs. Superman already? We haven't even been introduced to this Batman, and the Superman of this universe isn't particularly compelling. I honestly couldn't care who won, or, for that matter, even died. And it came out the same year as Captain America: Civil War, Marvel's big superhero fight movie. Was this honestly a deliberate decision by Warner Bros? Did they really think that this would, for some reason, aid their movie to make more money? If anything, it's a bad decision. And I mean like a really bad decision. People are always going to compare it to Civil War. So let me ask you this. Which superhero versus superhero movie would you rather see? A movie with over 10 heroes, the two leads being well-developed characters you actually like? Or would you rather see a film with only 2 superheroes, one of which you barely know, the other you don't know? The answer is clear to me. To make matters worse, they shoehorned Wonder Woman in there, which I guess sets up her superhero film, but this movie already had way too much to introduce. Heck, they had to introduce Batman, someone whose name is in the title. It worked, introducing Black Panther and Spider-Man into Civil War because we already knew the rest of the characters and, importantly, the main characters. But hey, at least DC is making 2 films this year, so what's the other? They showed off Wonder Woman in BVS, so maybe her solo film? They also showed off all the members of the Justice League, so maybe any of those characters. Or maybe a Batman solo film because he is a series staple, right? So, what exactly did DC release?
We're bad guys. It's what we do.
Nothing really matters.
Suicide Squad? Really? Really? God, you're killing me here, DC. Suicide Squad is a film about a bunch of misfits who are hired by the government to take a witch down and trade for their freedom. I know, that's really vague, but I haven't watched the movie since it came out, and frankly, I don't really want to. Why in the world would DC release this film this early? Should this really be the 3rd film in the universe? It's like if Marvel released a Thunderbolts movie after The Incredible Hulk. It literally made no sense to release this film when they did. Do I need to say more? I don't think so. Oh, so now DC is giving us our Wonder Woman movie. Hopefully Batman's next. So yeah, they already kind of messed up their timeline, but hopefully now they'll give each Justice League member their own film, or at least most of them. So we got Superman and Wonder Woman down. Come on, let's get the Batman movie now. What? Justice League already? We only know 3 of the characters, and only 2 have their own films. Now you have to introduce 3 new characters and the villain. How are you going to do that? Terribly. They'll do it terribly. But again, we're not going to talk about how bad these films are right now, even though that's hard. We're just going to be talking about the timeline, regardless of the movie's quality. And again, with Justice League, they have to reintroduce Superman because for some reason they killed him off in the last movie. And okay, so this being the 5th film in the universe on paper could kind of make sense. I mean, The Avengers, I think, was the 6th film in the MCU. But the reason that this was a bad decision was, out of the previous 4 films, only 2 of them really counted, those being Wonder Woman and Man of Steel. Suicide Squad didn't count for obvious reasons, and Dawn of Justice didn't count because it didn't set this film up. If anything, it made this film harder to succeed because it split up the main characters. So they have to introduce a buttload of characters and get them to actually come together. The Snyder Cut is coming in 2021, but it's still set before Aquaman, so this movie will probably be better, but right now we're not looking at the quality of the films. We're looking at the placement and release order of the films, so this doesn't really help. By the way, side note here, wouldn't it be hilarious if the Snyder Cut is actually really bad, Snyder directed Man of Steel, which isn't particularly good, so this might be the same. Either way, we'll see, I guess. So, how does DC's 2018 look? One film? Okay, what is it? Aquaman? Oh, now you release Aquaman? Why not do it earlier? I mean, if you're going to make this movie anyway, why not do it before Justice League? This literally makes no sense. By the way, this becomes the trend for DC. Just wait, you'll see. And, okay, so I guess this is fine, but may I ask why Aquaman is getting a solo film before Batman? Whatever, it's not too late. Maybe now DC will release each hero's solo film, and then a Justice League 2, or something like that. So, yeah, we had to wait another year for just one film, and quantity and quality are obviously not the same thing. I would pick quality over quantity any day. But DC, they really have to be thinking about catching up with Marvel, because Marvel has so many films, and they obviously want to replicate that, right? So they should be releasing films on a more frequent basis. But I guess if they could make, like, insanely good films that put Marvel to shame, then yeah, I'm fine with waiting. Heck, give me a DC film every 3 years, and I'm fine with waiting. But the thing is, DC isn't even releasing good films. Arguably, all their films are bad, and most people agree. But after waiting a year since Aquaman, 2019 once again only had one DCEU movie. And it's... Shazam! Okay, but what about The Flash? What about Cyborg? What about Batman? Frickin' Batman. I mean, this is Phase 2 stuff. Unless, you want to alter the Justice League lineup and add Shazam in there, then yeah, I guess it works. But now can we please get the other 3 solo films of the Justice League members so that we can actually look forward to Justice League 2? Of course not. It's DC. What did you expect? We got a movie about Harley Quinn and a bunch of other random misfit superheroes. A Suicide Squad 2 in essence. Is there anything else I have to say? By the way, for those of you who don't know, Joker is thankfully not part of the DCEU. Hence, I didn't include it. Before all of you haters, start typing in the comics about how Joker was so good, I agree. I said thankfully it wasn't part of this universe because this universe is so bad. And Joker really deserves better. And yeah, that's it. That's the entire DCEU up to this point in 2020. In 7 years, they only released 8 movies. I mean, quality over quantity, right? But somehow DC failed at both. Where Marvel was able to release the same amount of films in less than half the time, all of which are considered critical successes. Before discussing the films themselves, and don't worry, we're almost there, we're going to be discussing DC's future plans and release schedule. But right before doing that, a while back, with the release of Joker last year, Warner Bros. Declared that going forward, they're going to put a lot less emphasis on the shared part of their universe. And that's okay. I mean, I would love to see an actually connected DC universe like the MCU, but I guess this is fine too, if that's the direction they want to go. But it evidently wasn't. They did want a cinematic universe. That's why they skimped out on solo films and just gave us a team movie, superhero versus superhero, and Justice League. After that, I believe that they decided to branch out with more heroes before another team-up movie. But along the way, they quit. They tried and they failed to replicate Marvel. Again, they don't have to be like Marvel, but they tried and still failed. And don't forget, Marvel didn't know if it would be a success, but it still tried and it did succeed. Marvel had nothing to copy because a shared universe on that scale was unprecedented. While I don't like the idea of DC straight up copying Marvel, they tried to, but again, couldn't. And it's honestly not that hard when they have all the resources and can be confident it will succeed. But instead, they wanted to get to Marvel's level without any of the groundwork or effort. But hey, now that DC declared that going forward they're going to be more solo films, let's look at the future projects through that lens, rather than how is it preparing for Justice League 2 lens. You'd think that because the movies are no longer really connected, it won't matter what movies they make as long as they're good. For the most part, you'd be right, but there are some instances where there is an evident problem. By the way, it's 2020 and the most recent DC film is Birds of Prey, at the time of the recording of this video. Also, at this time, many of the films have been delayed and I believe will continue to get pushed back further and further. They're getting delayed because of certain pandemic that's going around right now. So again, none of the release dates are set in stone as of yet. So the next film on DC's slate we already have a trailer for, and that's Wonder Woman 1984. Again, because Warner Bros. Is now more interested in standalone films or trilogies, I can't really say anything bad about this. I mean, yeah, it's odd that we're getting a sequel to Wonder Woman before, a lot of these other solo films for superheroes. But Wonder Woman was a commercial and critical success and made a lot of money. So it kind of makes sense. But again, why are we getting a sequel to Wonder Woman before solo films for Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, etc.? Then comes Suicide Squad 2, and I feel the same way on it as I do with Wonder Woman 1984. Do we really need this before other films, especially when we just got Birds of Prey, which is similar to this one in tone? It's directed by James Gunn though, so that's the thing. Next up in 2021 is a really confusing one. We're finally getting the Batman solo film, but it's starring Robert Pattinson, not Ben Affleck. And that's something else I would like to talk about really quickly. The DCEU lost multiple actors and is continuing to do so. I mean, the Aquaman series is probably going to lose Amber Heard as Mera for that drama, and this is substantial because she was a lead in Aquaman, but I don't feel like it will ruin the Aquaman movies. But you know what's really gonna hurt DC? Losing Batman, aka Ben Affleck. But hey, they're replacing him with Robert Pattinson, who, in my opinion, is pretty perfect for a younger Batman. Also, I don't think anybody really loves Ben Affleck as Batman. From what I've seen, most think that he's okay or just straight up bad. I fall into the first category, but in my opinion, losing Henry Cavill as Superman is going to leave a stain on the DCEU. I, like the majority of the people, believe that Henry Cavill is perfect as Superman and the best casting choice in the DCEU and cinema in general. While many dislike the DCEU Superman because of lack of character development, it's hard to deny that the casting is spot on. On top of this, he has been in the most films in the franchise and even got his own solo film. With all these actors leaving, it's going to be pretty confusing for common moviegoers. Heck, replacing Edward Norton with Mark Ruffalo led to a lot of people to think that the Incredible Hulk isn't part of the MCU. But because the DCU isn't going to be as connected from now on, this isn't as big as a problem. Yet, it's still pretty big. The following DC film will be Black Adam, which is basically Shazam 2, so yeah, I feel the same way about it that I do with the Wonder Woman 1984 film. This seems to be a trend, so I'm gonna make a term for it. From now on, if I don't have a problem with any following movie, other than it's weird that we're getting it before another movie, I'll refer to it as Wonder Woman 1984 Syndrome. I know, a really original name. The next film, however, doesn't suffer from the syndrome, and that film is The Flash. Flash is a pretty well-known character, so I can't really complain. Then comes Shazam and Aquaman sequels, which, again, both suffer from Wonder Woman 1984 syndrome. So, again, this is just focusing on the release order. That's why I'm not giving my thoughts on the films themselves, if I think they'll be good, if I think they'll be bad, where I want the characters to go. I'll probably make another separate video on that later on, so stay tuned, I guess. DC will follow those films up with a Batgirl solo film, and I actually have a problem with this, and no, it's not because I hate when women are portrayed as strong on screen. I love Black Widow, Wanda, etc. The reason I don't like this is the gender is the only difference. The moveset and gadgets are, for the most part, the same, and putting the gender twist on things can only change the story so much, if at all. Then comes Green Lantern Corp, and it's whatever, it's fine, I don't have any gripes. So, this could work, this whole approach Warner Bros. Is taking on solo films. So, what's next? Justice League Dark? What? Okay, so didn't Warner Bros. Say there would be less emphasis on team-ups? One would think that meant it would be only solo or, duo movies. But Justice League Dark? So, is DC ready for it? By this time, they will have had 17 films in their franchise. So, are they ready? Honestly, I'd actually say yes. However, consider this. Out of the 17 movies, many of them don't really contribute to warranting a Justice League movie, those being BVS, Man of Steel, and the original Justice League, because the actors in those movies left. I said Justice League didn't count because of Ben Affleck Batman, which would conflict with the Robert Pattinson Batman, who I presume will be in this film. Other than that, the two Suicide Squad movies and the Harley Quinn movie don't contribute for obvious reasons. Side note, Black Adam may or may not count, I'm not sure. Now that we have that out of the way, what's our superhero team lineup looking like? We'll have 2 Wonder Woman movies, 2 Shazam movies, and 2 Aquaman movies. We'll also have had solo films for Batman, Flash, Batgirl, and Green Lantern. Pretty sweet lineup. Maybe they should have started with this. So, the team could consist of Batman, Flash, Shazam, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batgirl, and Green Lantern. That's 7 heroes, so yeah, it works. Also, it seems like a not said rule that hero teams must have 6 heroes with different powers. Seeing as Batman and Batgirl have the same powers, DC just made the cut. It would be the same lineup as the first film except for Superman and Cyborg. No one really cares about DCEU's Cyborg, so I don't think anyone would bat an eye. However, a Justice League without Superman would be weird. But hey, replace him with Shazam or Green Lantern, and it just might work. After that, there's some vague plans, but none are set in stone, so I won't talk about them here. So yeah, DC's plan moving forward still works. While the Suicide Squad / Harley Quinn movies don't really add, they don't take away either. They're just fun movies on the side, so I think they're fine. And leading up to Justice League Dark will actually have the groundwork laid out with several compelling and developed characters, or at least I hope. However, I have one caveat. I would still like to see Superman in this universe. So, because Henry Cavill quit the role, just make Man of Steel no longer canon. It's not a good movie, so no one would really care. And while you're at it, I say just take Justice League and BVS out too. BVS's 2 leads quit, so it would be weird if the movie was canon when we have another Batman in the same universe. And that applies to Justice League too. Half of the actors of the team are no longer working with Warner Bros., and no one cares about Cyborg. Once again, having Batman in this movie will automatically make it, in my opinion, not canon. Unless, of course, there were 2 Batmans in this universe, but I feel like and hope that that's not the case. I think that with Batman 2021, they're just going to ignore all previous iterations of Batman entirely. It is true that Wonder Woman and Aquaman are both in Justice League, but I feel that taking out Justice League doesn't take much character development out of the 2 of them. Same goes with Dawn of Justice and Wonder Woman. And even if the Snyder Cut of Justice League is really good, I think that they will still have to take it out of canon. I'm not sure which version of Justice League will be canon, or if they both will, one being a regular film, the other adding and not taking away. But either way, I think neither of them can be canon. The reason being, again, because Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill are no longer part of the DC Extended Universe. Normally, this wouldn't be as set in stone, because actors often come back for reasons, usually money, but Warner Bros. Already replaced Ben Affleck with Robert Pattinson. Therefore, they can't be in the same universe. I'm fine if there are 2 Batmen at the same time on the big screen, kind of like there were 2 Quicksilvers, one in the Fox universe, the other in the MCU. But they can't be in the same universe without an explanation. So yeah, in conclusion, DC's plan is looking pretty good. They're establishing characters for a big team-up movie, which may even be better than the first Avengers, in the sense that the characters will be more developed. And there are also fun side movies too. Once they take 3 movies previously mentioned out of canon, they should be set. However, is the damage already done? The poor start of the DCE will definitely leave a stain on the cinematic universe. Other than that, I think that the future for DC is bright, or at least their plan. Whether their movies are actually good or not is a whole nother thing. I also want to mention really quickly that I liked the initiative Warner Bros. Was taking when trying to rebrand this universe. Instead of the DC Extended Universe, which is a very boring name, they were opting to call it the Worlds of DC. And I do like that a lot better, but even when you search the Worlds of DC on Google, up comes the DCEU, so yeah, that name isn't really sticking. This video is long enough, so I will be reviewing and ranking them in another video. So, stay tuned for that.